Okay. Aside from a touch of technical difficulty, and now being unable to keep myself in the frame the way I want, we're up and running. Uh, I made my spooky thumbnail, and then I noticed when I went to record that the laptop wasn't making any sounds. So I did a little bit of troubleshooting and I restarted, and seemed to be playing fine. The sound's just fine. So then I did a sound test on my camera, uh, really the microphone, to make sure that it was picking up audio, and it didn't. For like, I don't know. I had to restart again, but now that I've restarted, it seems to be working. I'm going to have to check this right after I'm done making the video. But it's Halloween. Ooh. Um, to get myself in the spirit of things, I went and watched Alien, one of my favorite scary movies of all time. Aliens is actually my favorite, although it's considerably less scary. It still has, without a doubt, elements of horror. Um, I would say that Alien is more about terror, not knowing if you're going to live or not. And Aliens, the sequel, is more about horror, knowing that even if you die, terrible things may just continue to happen to just about everybody. Um, and I think that's one of the main differences. I think I've talked about horror and terror. There are still people ringing the doorbell. We've actually had quite a busy night, all things considered. In fact, I'm a little surprised because it rained pretty close to sundown. In fact, it probably kept raining after sundown, and it's still pretty cold and damp. Let me see what the actual temperature is right now. No, it is not 57. Is it? 1 second. Okay. I've had this problem where, oh, it's 57. Go figure. Or 55. It can't make up its mind. And it's not supposed to rain until 9 o'clock in an hour. But yeah. Halloween. I think I went into great detail yesterday about how Halloween is one of my favorite holidays of all time. Even though I don't do a lot of going out. I could go to a haunted house tonight, but I'm sort of opposed to driving when there's so many kids out. I think that's just sort of irresponsible. So I guess I'll just have to skip Halloween haunted houses this year. Kept meaning to go, and like this weekend would have been perfect, and I just. But yeah, watched Alien tonight, and that movie remains one of the creepiest of all time. And Alien is one of those movies with so many little details, so many little things that I still see things each time I watch it that I didn't notice before. And a couple things occurred to me today. I was actually telling my friends this. One of the great things about Alien is that there's already a lot of discord and conflict between members of the crew of the Nostromo before anything else happens. The very first thing is that the characters of Brett and Parker, who are the engineers and technicians of the ship, are upset that they're not receiving a full share of the profit because their contracts basically necessitate that they get half shares each. So they're sort of miffed with the rest of the crew. Dallas is not happy with his relationship with Ash, essentially, which becomes more obvious later because in matters of scientific interest, he has to play by the company's rule book and basically give Ash, as the science officer, full control of the situation. The only two people that really seem sort of okay with themselves in the situation at the start are Ripley and Kane, played by John Hurt, who famously is one of the first people to get into the alien derelict ship. Lambert, the character played by Veronica Cartwright, is always nervous, almost always smoking, just seems uncomfortable being around everybody else, doesn't seem to get along particularly well with anybody except Dallas, who it's implied they're having a romantic relationship with each other. And then it gets more and more complex as they have to touch down, investigate the source of the signal. Ash starts to show more interest in the alien organism than the safety of his own crew members, which Ripley sees as a vagrant disregard for the rules that he is supposed to be upholding as the person in charge of this organism's like collection. And it creates the perfect atmosphere to introduce a monster to, because it does drive some of the characters together when they were showing conflict with each other before, and it sort of lets you know what their true colors are. Parker is actually pretty concerned with the safety of not just himself but the rest of the crew. He wants to destroy the creature for what it's done to his friends. Brett, on the other hand, is basically hopeless even when confronted with a life or death situation. Kane is an optimist that wants to see this alien derelict and wants to make discoveries, despite his role as essentially a space trucker, and is punished for his curiosity by being infected by the alien and being the source of the xenomorph when it finally appears. What was I going to say? Aliens, on the other hand, is less about people's interactions with each other, but there is the distinct Ripley and Gorman and Paul Reiser's character, whose name I can never remember, Burke. So there's those three who are sort of separate from the Marines. The Marines all, in fact, trained together for their role as a group. So they had this tight-knit bond of, yeah, we're going to be in an alien movie together. We're all going to be hanging out together, and it's going to be cool, all right. And so they had this weirdly confrontational situation where they didn't like the newcomers. And it all worked out really well. They all cared deeply for one another. They had their differences and they argued and bickered, but they seemed like, sort of a frat house, even though there were women in it. They were all chums, and they would all do anything for each other and die for each other. And most of them did. So the horror in Aliens is that this entire complex has been overrun by these creatures, and all it's going to take is one company shuttle that brings one of these things back with it to unleash this species across space and possibly end humanity once and for all. This is a fear in the first movie. That's one of the reasons Ripley doesn't want to allow the infected Kane on board with the organism attached to him. But it becomes much more about just those individuals' survival, by the time they start dying, essentially. And even when characters are, slipping away and passing and getting killed and eaten in Aliens, you still, the real fear is what happens when these things go where they want, especially when you find the Queen has been smuggled, or smuggled herself rather, on board the dropship to get back up to the Sulaco. The idea that a Queen flying through space and could be discovered by any number of poor and witting saps, or, not even herself, but her eggs could be brought on board by foolish explorers or salvagers. That whole aspect of it really becomes crystal clear. And in fact, in the third movie, the very end, that's Ripley's primary fear, is that the company has come to capture her, or rather capture the thing inside her, and she chooses to sacrifice her own life to keep that out of their hands. Scary stuff. I wish I could say more about trick-or-treaters themselves. I mean, a wide range of costumes, many of which I don't even recognize. I think I saw one Mockingbird from the Hunger Games. At least it was a girl with a bow and arrow. I don't know, maybe she was supposed to be Girl Hawkeye. But she didn't really have Hawkeye's outfit on. I saw the Dark Knight Batman. I saw a lot of Harry Potter kids, actually. I'm really happy about that. I mean, I thought Harry Potter sort of crested, and now that it's Fantastic Beasts, I think the fact that Fantastic Beasts seems to be geared more towards an adult audience with a cast of primarily adults, that's probably a big part of it. But I'm really glad that Harry Potter still appeals to a younger audience and that people are still reading those books and enjoying them. It's easy to think that Harry Potter's, past its prime, but those books will continue to exist for years, and young people learning how to read will pick them up for the first time and enjoy them. And that's one of the things that I'm thinking about as NaNoWriMo starts tomorrow. But I'll go sort of into that and some other stuff tomorrow. But until then, I'm Eric Spornitz, and tomorrow will be better.